You are the host, and we are live on YouTube.
Thank you so much. Hello and welcome everyone to the fourth edition of Ananke's Women in Literature. This is day 3, the final day, and I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome Dr. Tarana Hussain Khan to this really interesting uh, um session. So, Dr. Tarana, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Namrata and Sabine.
It's an absolute pleasure on our part as well. And today's topic is a dish in time. And before we go into our discussion, I'd like to formally talk about Dr. Tarana's work. So, Dr. Tarana Hussain Khan is a writer and food historian with a passion for exploring the intersection of gender, history, culinary culture, and oral history. Her writings based on extensive research on the cuisine of the erstwhile princely state of Rampur have been published in prominent media outlets such as Al Jazeera, Eaton Magazine, Scroll, Gruet, Open Magazine, The Wire, Mint, Goya, and in the anthologies of Delicacies and Dastarkhan, Food Writing from South Asia and Diaspora. Her research article narrating Rampur cuisine, cookbooks, forgotten foods, and culinary memories was published in the Global Food History Journal in April 2023 issue. Tarana is the author of critically acclaimed book on Rampur cuisine, Deh to Dastarkhan, Kissas and Recipes from Rampur, published by Penguin Random House India, which explores Rampur's culinary history and historical fiction, The Begum and the Dastan, which won the Kalinga Literary Award for Fiction and was shortlisted for Women's Writers Award by She the People. She has co-edited and contributed to an anthology of food writings, Forgotten Foods, Memories and Recipes from Muslim South Asia. And this was published by Pan Macmillan India. She has also curated and contributed to a highly popular series, Forgotten Foods in Scroll.in, and wrote a monthly column on Rampur cuisine, Food Fables, in Daily O. She is currently working as a research fellow at the University of Sheffield on an Arts and Humanities Research Council funded project, Forgotten Food, Culinary Memory, Local Heritage, and Lost Agricultural Varieties in India. So welcome, Dr. Tarana.
Thank you so much for this generous introduction. It's lovely to be here, and I hope we'll have a very sparkling and delicious conversation.
An Epicurean gastronomical conversation. So I'd like to begin with you telling us about your journey into this titillating field of food.
Yes, so I actually did not begin as a food writer. When I started, writing, I was also researching for my book called Begum and the Dastan, and researching the culture of Rampur. And I chanced upon these cookbook manuscripts at the Rampur Raza Library, which were written in Persian and which dated to 1816 till late 19th century. And I was really intrigued because they spoke of nearly 50 kinds of pulaus and kebabs and kormas. And I was that, where have all these styles gone away, And so I could just read actually the titles. I did not have any Persian. So I started learning Persian and translated the manuscripts and tried to, cook them with the help of my chef, my Khansama, which was an experience in itself because the measurements all went wrong and I couldn't understand. The procedures were so intricate and they presumed that we would know it, what to do with it. And of course, our procedures have all changed. So I also wrote about, trying out this pulao Shah Jahani, because it was such a grand kind of a thing. It was the first successful pulao that I made. And Professor Siobhan Lambert Hurley at the University of Sheffield, she read this article and she connected to me, and then we were talking about these forgotten foods, and I was very passionate about the food culture of Rampur, and we kind of got this project from the Arts and Humanities Research Council, which was a big boon because that helped me to carry on with my research. And it has been an amazing journey from then on. I think it was just fated because I'm not a foodie and I'm definitely not a great cook.
But all right, so you're not a foodie, and here I am, a huge foodie, and especially of Desi food. Even the khicharis and things that our kids they don't eat, unfortunately. So you said something and which I found really interesting, that food, and I agree with that. Food is the language of identity. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, so when I said that I'm not a foodie, that is probably I'm just a foodie in denial, because when you're growing yes, when you are growing up and you are just expect the food to taste a certain way, and your taste buds are learning with every meal. And because I grew up in a family of passionate foodies, so maybe it was just a rebellion kind of a thing, but they were always telling me, oh, this is wrong with this dish. It was like a post-mortem kind of a thing at the dinner table, and you should do this, and the cook was called, and how can you do this, and how was the palak not finely chopped and before making palak gosh kind of a conversation. So I was so food is undeniably, I realized through my research and while I was writing, I realized that yes, it is a part of my identity, and I would identify with this food. Another thing that was amazing was that how different people can make a certain style of food their own. You want to explore a place, you would eat the food and you're making it your own. So definitely, and people who are displaced, the diaspora, or even refugees, what is the best way of coming close to what you have, or telling your children about your identity? It is through food. It is the most immediate and the most tangible thing, that is a tangible part of our identity. So food as identity, food as a part of being this your own journey, and was a big eye opener for me as well. And then when I focus back on what we had lost, because you see, Rampur is a princely state about 200 kilometers from Delhi. And and it was a very rich and a 15 gun salute, very politically important under the colonial powers. And so the Nawabs of Rampur had developed these cuisines because they were Rohilla Pathans. They were tribal leaders who had come with a very basic kind of a cuisine from the highlands of Swat and Roh on the Pakistan and Afghanistan border. So when they encountered these other cuisines like the Mughal and the Awadhi cuisine, primarily these two cuisines, they wanted to gentrify themselves through various other things, through poetry, through clothes, and also through food. And once when there was peace all around, there were no wars to be fought and no way to assert yourself. So gastro diplomacy became the way of asserting your identity, that okay, this is Rampur food, this is what we eat, and laying it all for different diplomats, for people visiting. So Rampur cuisine had a great sense of pride, and that is what we had lost. That was a part of our identity which we had lost, and which just existed in oral history because of course, economic hardships. After the abolition of privy purses, people were not rich enough. The Nawabs themselves were not rich enough. The elite people had been displaced. So they had lost this very important aspect of their culture, this finely honed cuisine. And that is what drew me to this research, and the idea of reimagining and recreating some important dishes, at least, which now existed in oral history, existed in some cookbooks, became the part of this project. And I'm very grateful that I was able to, with the resources of the project, I was able to do so much in spotlighting this aspect of Rampur cuisine.
You said this interesting term, gastro diplomacy.
Yes.
And while you were talking about this, I was thinking, how food brings people together, creates relationships. Um, Starting from this animated movie that I saw, Ratatouille, where this food reviewer, this very hard kind of, he takes a bite and he goes back in memory lane where his mother, is making ratatouille for him. And then, you talk about diplomacy in the sense, there's this phrase, that's not diplomacy, but, there's this phrase that, to enter a man's heart, you enter by the stomach. That's on the individual level. And then you see people, not people, but like countries sending, in movies and in history, you see, one state or one country uh, going somewhere with taking away their, taking their food with them as gifts, right? So that's another form of gastro diplomacy. Um, but what I'm seeing now, that as time is going by, these legacies are, well, I think they're being erased. Do you think that is happening on an individual or a community? There are people who take, certain kind of, they buy chocolates and they take that. But when we were little, our mothers used to cook kheer and take that with them to when they're visiting their relations. So is that legacy being eroded and being erased?
Yes, I think in many ways it is. Gastro diplomacy was a soft kind of diplomacy. It was sharing of food and building relationships that the Nawabs did, and on an individual level, we also are used to doing it, because food is a very important part of the culture. And so I think we Indians are very, very we love sharing our food. We love taking food when we visit somebody. We love preparing food and calling people over. So that's a way of building relationships. And also, if you look at the different festivals like the Sivai or the Gujiyas, and sharing all this, so that is a very much a part of the cultural fiber of India. If you it is in a way being eroded, in the sense that maybe people are not really coming face to face with each other so much. So there are other ways of building relationships, but food is important anyway, because, as you said, the aroma of the food that you ate as a child, and the sense, these are the culinary memories. So I was also trying to get these culinary memories of the old timers, of different people who had the food of the bygone era, and how it was served. When was it served? What was the culture around the food? What was the culture around certain dishes? So all of this is definitely being eroded. Maybe because life has become too fast paced, or maybe we don't have the time to make the effort of preparing kimami simai and taking it to a friend's place, and we just show up with a bunch of flowers. That's easier. So yes, in a number of ways, the erasure is there, and this was the erasure of not only the dishes, but also of foodways and customs around food. and the whole act of sharing food, because I really feel that when you share food, you give a part of yourself to the other person, and when you eat that other person's food, that person becomes a part of you. So this, maybe a lot of things are happening in India, and this sharing culture definitely has been impacted through various political climate and the social climate, and maybe we are not so much into connecting with each other, and food bridges that gap. It is a very, very simple way of bridging gap between people, bridging gap between cultures. So in many ways, this culture of sharing is being that's little soft diplomacy is being erased in our culture now.
I absolutely agree with you. I was speaking to this to one of the authors yesterday, Tathagata Bhattacharya, and he spoke about how language is politicized, but it's not just language; it's the food as well. If you're talking about the South Asian region, or if you're talking about India and Pakistan as well, it's how because of representation and how governments are imposing that upon us, the nation. But I will move on to another aspect of the same question, which is, what we're consuming these days. And it's like, the factory production stuff, the McDonald's, and, that I love eating that. And my kids, more than me. So, how do we change this massive consumption of fast food, which is fast, but it is also, something that we should, run away from, because, there are other aspects of this kind of production and this kind of food, which is hampering, which is triggering climate change as well, which is triggering, or which is, but when you talk about biodiversity and so many things that are happening in this world, it is a direct result of how and what we are consuming. So how do we counter that? How do we, and on a small level, small in the sense, how do we counter that in our homes?
Yes, that's a very interesting question. So this this feeling that our children are going towards fast food, I'm sure our parents also felt the same thing, that okay, they're having chow mein and they're having burgers, and this is not really our food. And my mother used to detest pasta and Maggie and all these meals that we used to love. Said our children, I believe, need to be sensitized more, because now the issue is much larger. Like it's an issue of climate change also, and also sensitizing them to the different cuisines. I think one key of making our children aware is also by making them aware of the different cuisines, like food adventurism or food travel is something that on Zomato you already have the hummus, let us say, and hummus and pita bread. Well, why the children can be taught about, told to have that, and told something about the people who are preparing it and something. So yes, that kind of an effort needs to be done. Okay, yeah, there's McDonald's, but there is also hummus and pita bread, and there is also za'atar, which has a different flavor, and let us say Greek food. And why shouldn't, let's just prepare one of that food and let's just serve it. And I think for parents it is a lot of effort, but the really cool thing about these days is that it's really cool to have this palette of food adventure and food travel, and insta about this wonderful dish. You don't insta about much about a McDonald's burger that you ate, but you would want to insta about a Kabuli pulao, and how it is sweet and it's still a pulao and it has got meat, and how it is different from you and how it is like you. So I think that is the way of catching the attention of the young people. And having said that, I would like to also say that no food is authentic to a place. So when you are making Kabuli pulao, maybe you would leave out the carrots and have the kishmish and the meat together, and present it. And so this is my version of Kabuli pulao. So dishes are traveling through time and through timelines and through borders, and that's the best way of converting your children to something that is amazing and different, and which can be maybe put on Insta or TikTok. And that's what young
Absolutely.
love doing.
Absolutely. Talking about Kublai Pulao, we move on to this huge area, because South Asia, it's, primarily rice eaters. So let's talk about that, and let's talk about, how climate change is also impacting that. But, and let's talk about my favorite thing, the khichdi as well. But yeah, I'd love to know more about that.
Yes, so a part of my work also under this project also involved the revival of certain heritage rice varieties, because of the hybrid rice varieties taking over the whole of North India, and without us realizing it. Like till the 1990s, we were having these highly aromatic local rice varieties on our plate. We used to have a tilak chandan with which we made the khichdi, and Rampur khichdi has urad dal, that is the black lentil, and it's a daily dish through the winter. It's amazing. Like Rampur people can't have enough of it. They eat it daily. They eat it when they are fasting. Even if it's summer, they would still eat it, because urad dal is supposed to be a warm dal, and so it's usually had during winters. And the minute the weather cools down, they go on their khichdi with the muli ka achar, that is pani wala achar. And they have gobi gosh, they have keema, or there are khichdi dawats. So the idea of this rice variety that was highly aromatic, and that announced that khichdi was on the boil throughout the house. So where did that rice variety disappear? It's a small rice variety called tilak chandan, small grained. And so we went looking for this seed, and Mr. Sandhu, who's a farmer in Rampur, he found this rice. And through COVID, we were continuing with our project through COVID. So he sowed this rice at his farm. And we also sent, so there's a plant scientist called Professor Duncan Cameron, who was a part of this project. So we sent a sample of the seeds to him, and he confirmed that this is indeed tilak chandan. And he grew it in his lab, which didn't do very well, because probably while we sent the seeds, they subjected it to a lot of chemicals to neutralize it or whatever. But anyway, for 3 straight years, we were able to bring in the harvest of tilak chandan. And the minute it was cooked, I had some Rampuri friends over, and they were like, okay, this is tilak chandan. Where did you get it from? Can we have it? People ask, it's a cultural thing. It's a cultural loss not having this. And so there are about 2 lakh. That's what I discovered through research, that there are more than 2 lakh heritage rice varieties which have become extinct because of the hybrids. You can't blame the farmer, because hybrid is producing much higher yield, but he's putting in a lot of pesticides, and that's harmful for us. So and it is, of course, promoting the degradation of the soil, and it is depleting the resources. So all this is something that you have to, it's like a much larger thing than what we can do. It is just rice on your plate, but the disappearance of this one rice variety is something that has a lot of repercussions throughout that region. So just a khichdi, just a daily dish, quotidian dish of the Rampuris, or them. There are different, like you have Gobind Bhog in Bengal, you have Jireng Sada rice in the Malabar region. So all these rice varieties have to be treasured, because the hybrid rice varieties, now I know with my culinary wisdom, are just elongated rice and taste nothing. They have no aroma at all. In fact, people started putting in spices into the khichdi, when actually, that khichdi is supposed to be really plain, because there was no aroma. So the idea of sensitizing people to a sort of a demand creation of these particular rice varieties. I'm just talking about one. There are so many hundreds of rice varieties which have become extinct, and the seeds are being lost. So that became an important part of this project. And khichdi is something that is, I say it is a part of Indian culture throughout history. You have references of khichdi since ancient India. The rice and pulses, simple porridge was a part of our diet forever. Well, why not promote this kind of khichdi? This is us. This is our simple dish. So we even fed khichdi to people in Sheffield. In fact, yesterday I had a lecture at the University of Sheffield. The MA students and Professor Shivon made the urad dal khichdi and served it for the students, just so that they get a taste of what khichdi is really, what we are talking about. So it's wonderful, and it's all about really sharing and becoming aware of your own heritage, food heritage, your own food ways, and become sensitive to what we are losing in this march towards development and how it is impacting everything around us.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, these, be it rice or be it, again, fast food, it's, you're uh, basically conditioning yourselves to have this one kind of food that is not even unique. It's not even healthy. Our well-being, be it, our physical health, or our mental health as well. Food, I think, plays a huge part in that. Would you agree? Because, if you're having something which is tantalizing, on your tongue, uh, yes, food flavors and whatnot does that. But when you're talking about tilak chandan, the kind of aroma and the kind of and how it tastes on your taste buds, that uniqueness, that does something to your brain as well. So I think, would you agree to that?
Yes, definitely. I feel that there are certain pleasure centers that light up when the right taste buds are stimulated. And as we grow up with certain foods, our we are attuned to having that food give us a lot of satisfaction. The satisfaction is also a part of it being part of our identity and a part of being who we are. Uh, and as I started working, because a part of this project was also, as I said, revival of the lost dishes. Most of these dishes we had not eaten. We had heard about them. We had sometimes read about them also. So, coming to these dishes was another kind of an education. How we had been taught how to use the different spices, because Rampuris don't like too much of aromatic spices. So I realized that in our home cooking, we never use any spices. It's only in korma and pulao and kebab that we use any spices at all. Otherwise, the daily cooking has zero aromatic spices. That's because our taste buds were already attuned to it. On the other hand, if you look at other centers like Awadh or Lucknow or Delhi, Especially Lucknow is highly aromatic, and you use a lot of kevra or aromatic things, and that satisfies them. So when we were recreating these recipes with the help of the khansamas, I came back to that basic knowledge that had been kind of taught to our palate, and that had been taught growing up, looking at the way spices were used in the house. So that was an education in itself. And coming from Rampur, while I was doing this anthology on forgotten foods, I also expanded outside, because this anthology was about South Asian Muslim food throughout the subcontinent and what they were losing. For example, there was this Mapila cuisine. First of all, I barely knew anything about the Mapila cuisine, which is from Muslim cuisine from Kerala. And they had this dish called mutta mala, which is like an egg garland, very very difficult to make, and which is why it is getting people are forgetting all about it. So writing about it and trying it out, I was trying to make it my own. In the same way, one of the contributors wrote about how Eromba is a dish from Manipur Methi community, that's the Muslim community, and how they make it with dried fish. So trying that out, and it's a totally different flavor. We are not used to the dried fish flavor. We are not used to so much to the fish flavors also. So expanding outside is also a very important part of our education. Not let's not say just education, it's just an expansion of your own personality, that you have to welcome and share and be open to other food cultures also. So this whole journey, which was it was a personal journey, connecting to a number of food writers, connecting to people who knew these old dishes in Rampur specifically, who had food memories around it, was simply amazing. And I tried to recreate it in my writings. And I hope that people reading about these foods would also become more open to different food cultures, because when you're open to different food cultures, you're open to other identities and other ways of thinking and other ways of being. And the barriers kind of come down. It's very easy to say, okay, I don't like the smell of fish, and it's everywhere. Or people who enter the Indian kitchens in the UK say, oh, it's smelling so much of garlic, and it's a smell that doesn't go away. Yes, it is, but it is us. And so accepting each other through food is one message that I would want to convey.
Absolutely. I would love it if you could spotlight some of the culinary geniuses, who your favorite culinary geniuses are. And yeah, that would be nice.
Well, very honestly, my culinary geniuses don't really, let's say they are not around anymore, because they were these nameless and faceless people who actually worked in the kitchens. We come to know about them through different oral histories. I'm speaking about Rampur, and similar stories that I have heard about Avdi cuisines also. And these were the khansamas of these cultural culinary centers, who created some amazing marvels of the cuisine for the pleasure of their master. But the relationship between the master and the khansamas was very unequal, because there was no copyright. And so what they had was the skill that was in their hands, and they felt that if they kept this skill a secret, they will always have this power. And so it makes me sad that now a lot of these different skills and techniques have been lost because of this unequal relationship, because of this insecurity among the khansamas. For instance, there was this khansama who could prepare two kinds of rices. in one cauldron, and he was called Heather, and he was from Rampur. But we don't know how he did that. How was he able to prepare a sweet and a savory pulao in the same pan? How could he do it? What were the tastes that these khansamas, and what kind of secret? How did they develop all of this coming together? They learned from each other, and that is what Rampur kitchens were, as well as other kitchens, coming together of people and creating something. And lots of gains of this kind of amalgamation have been lost. So they are the culinary geniuses that I would always, admire. Even though most of them are faceless and nameless, we do know about a few of their names. Through my research, I've come to know, and they've come down through oral history. So they are the people who are really admirable. And it is sad that because of they were made to feel insignificant, maybe, and expendable, which is why we do not have the legacy that they left. And most of them were unlettered.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about expendable, when you visit these palaces, these historical sites, we went to Turkey, amazing palaces. You go to India, you have these elaborate kitchens and these elaborate pots and pans and places of, fire where they're cooking. And then, you're in awe that, there's this huge, language that is taking place in terms of food and, what they were eating. And also there, there's another aspect, a slightly, not slightly, but a darker aspect, if the food is poisoned, the chef's son was the taster in Turkey, one of our guides told us, and we were like, oh my God. So that is another aspect of it, of, something which is so beloved and so every day, right? So I just wanted to mention that. And my last question to you is, food, if food is indeed the language of identity, how is it also, that it's marginalized, and communities are marginalized because of, this identity and representation in the world we live in today? And how do we counter that marginalization?
Yes, that is the sad part. It is very easy to and othering is taking place. And that is all centered around foodways and food traditions. It is something that is so, it really hits you very, very close when you have that kind of a marginalization, especially when people are moving from one place to another. They do not have the same ingredients, they don't have the same resources. Sometimes these ingredients are not made, are unavailable to them because there is a stigma around those ingredients. Sometimes people are scared of cooking certain things because they can be, the atmosphere that is created, the social or the political atmosphere that is created is such that they don't dare to indulge in those gastronomic pleasures. For instance, one of the food writers who's written in this anthology talks about how they used to eat the intestines of animals, and she's a Sri Lankan writer. So she was taunted at school because she used to eat it, and so it was, every time she ate it, even at home, it was a sort of a guilty shame that she felt inside for her own food. And the same thing is happening now. It's just been happening. The way of marginalizing communities is also manifested in the marginalization of food and in othering of food, or making the other person feel ashamed of what he or she is eating. So that's how food cultures are dying, or are mutating, or are leaving behind certain food traditions, which shouldn't have happened in a place that has freedoms. And also, as people are moving as refugees from one place to another, they can't always recreate the foods that they used to have. Though they do try to, like, they would want to have that food, because it makes them feel good inside, because so much a part of their identity. Yes, so that marginalization, that othering, is something that is a continuous story that is happening all over the world, not just the subcontinent, but it's just happening all over the world, where people are looked down for the food that they are eating, for their food preferences or their food ways.
Absolutely, absolutely. You were talking about people, uh, in the West, when they enter our kitchens and they smell spices. And it's also documented in movies and web series and different. And there's this the negative the negativity sometimes that you find in that, that bias that you find, that is also heartbreaking, because it is our uniqueness, our diversity that should be celebrated.
That's very true. So I went on a with some students to Japan, and where the students, it was a program where the students had to stay in a Japanese household. Now this child, she was from I think probably from Delhi, and she was in tears, and we had to really go and be with her. She said, "I can't live here. This place is stinking. I just cannot live here, and they don't have any locks on the doors." But that kind of a thing is so difficult for the younger people to understand, that yes, people can have, and they said, "I just want Indian food. They have to give me Indian food. I have to eat it in Indian restaurant." When the whole idea of this was to make people aware, the children aware of different cultures, and appreciate the different cultures. But they said, we can't stand it. We'll die. I'll just have fruits. I cannot live here. I can't breathe here. I feel insecure because there are no locks on the doors. So so this exposure needs to be put in very slowly, and it should happen right at the beginning. On the other hand, now we find that even younger children are told not to share tiffins. It's so heartbreaking, because if you remember, I think we belong to a generation where we were sharing tiffins with our friends, and it was
Exactly.
so much fun. That was a part of our school life,
You
isn't
look,
it?
we used to look forward to that, more food, more, variety. So, yeah.
Yes, but then the children are told at home that don't share tiffins of
Yeah.
so and so and so and so, or whatever.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes.
So that is heartbreaking. So then I think that food becomes very central to how we are perceiving others also. How the children are made to perceive others, and the othering that is happening currently is all centered around food at a very young stage. So this is something that we need to really come up very strongly against, and through stories to children, through having community meals, getting together on different occasions and sharing food. I think then food becomes, as we began by talking about, food becomes the bridge across communities, and very
Absolutely.
central to the social fabric,
Absolutely.
the diaspora, or it is within a country.
True. Absolutely agree with you on that. We are at the end of our session. If there's anything, Dr. Tarana, you'd like to add?
Um, yes, one more thing I would like to add is that very often we disregard little food stories that we have come listening to, and it is a time where there has been already a lot of erasure, specifically of food and cultures, and we should try to preserve them in one way or the other. We have such means to actually preserve them, by writing about them, by even just a little post on Insta. And I see a lot of people writing about it, and it's very heartening, because then it is there always, and we don't forget it. So this is one message. And yes, sharing, that's one more thing that I would like to say. Please don't hesitate to share food. It is difficult at times. It is something that, even there are certain things that I would not want to eat, but yes, sharing is an important aspect of knowing people. Sharing food is very, very important aspect.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with you. It's soft diplomacy, it's building bridges, it's getting to know one's culture and, their lived experiences, because you are what you eat. So I absolutely agree with you. Thank you so much, Dr. Tarana Khan, for this wonderful discussion of Epicurean proportions. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure being here and talking all about things close to my heart, food. Yes.
Thank you.